Greetings, everyone. You're watching Six Path Weeb, and I warmly welcome you to the channel. Today, we continue our captivating fanfiction series with part 2 of What If Naruko Balanced Kurama's Yin and Yang? Before we begin, please note. Disclaimer, the content featured on this channel is intended solely for entertainment and thoughtful discussion. I do not own any of the anime footage presented in these videos. All rights and credits belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. Now then, let's dive in. Kurama was content. The great fox could clearly observe how each piece of his long-laid plans was finally beginning to take shape, and it was quite the sight to behold. Every now and then, he had to stop himself from doing an overly cheerful victory dance. Not because he physically couldn't, but because it might alert his host, Naruko, that something unusual was going on. That, and the curious part, why did he even want to dance in the first place? It wasn't something he ever cared about during his days of complete freedom. It left him wondering, was he becoming wiser or just stranger? Regardless, Kurama knew one thing for certain: his past self never would have come up with an actual strategy. Back then, he simply relied on raw strength. And when that wasn't enough, he ended up restrained, sealed away into humans, through painful and unpleasant means. So no, Kurama couldn't call the old days better, even if they were simpler. Sometimes, he did find himself missing those simpler times. Back then, he didn't worry about what he said. He would have growled at his host whenever they crossed paths, tried to overwhelm her with his chakra whenever she annoyed him, and eventually broken free of the seal with ease. Simple plans. All he needed was for his host to get angry, then the rest followed naturally. But now? Things had changed. He had chosen the more complicated path, building trust with his host, Naruko. It was difficult at first, but over time, it became natural. That in itself was unsettling. He would sometimes wake up from uneasy dreams where, upon gaining his freedom, he gave Naruko a friendly fist bump and peacefully strolled off into the sunset, careful not to disturb a single flower. A terrifying thought. Was he changing? Kurama feared that maybe, just maybe, he was growing fond of this way of life. And that possibility? It made him nervous. His old self would never have accepted feelings like guilt or responsibility. But now? If he continued down this path, he might feel regret over things he once found thrilling. Worse still, he could barely find any peace in his own mind. The connection with Naruko had grown so strong that he felt like she could read his thoughts. Privacy, a concept once taken for granted, had become a rare luxury. He remembered a time when Naruko popped into his subconscious right as he was outlining part of his long-term guidance strategy. He nearly panicked when she asked, "Hey, Big Fox, what you doing? Making plans to help me in my shinobi path? Why are you sighing so much?" It had taken all of Kurama's composure to play it cool. Since that moment, paranoia had set in. The lines between plan and reality began to blur. Was he still Kurama, the majestic and independent tailed beast? Or was he now Naruko's companion? One day, he would need to find that answer. But for now, more immediate matters demanded attention, like the cheerful, golden-haired girl sitting across from him. Naruko was puzzled. She had truly believed that by practicing her chakra enough, everything would eventually click into place. At least when it came to techniques that weren't hand-to-hand combat, which clearly required physical training. But her failure on graduation day had come out of nowhere. She had never once considered the possibility that she might not pass, or even what life would look like if she didn't become a shinobi. Would someone like her, a Jinchuriki, ever be allowed to walk a path other than that of a ninja? Luckily, she didn't have to find out. Somehow, she managed to scrape through the exam with a surprising last-minute performance. A secret backdoor method to graduate had seemingly opened for her. Not that she was going to complain. Sure, part of her wondered if her status as Kurama's host had something to do with it, but she didn't linger on that thought. After all, she had created a clone, and a decent one at that. Still, she wanted answers. Thanks to their enhanced connection, Naruko was now able to enter Kurama's mindscape easily, her presence immediately greeted by the towering, majestic form of the fox. She had even found traces of his chakra working gently in her brain. She figured it was helping her process thoughts better, sharpening her instincts. It wasn't a genjutsu, she was certain of that. Kurama wasn't the trickster type anymore. Besides, she was skilled enough with illusions to recognize one if she was caught in it. In time, she'd figured out how to communicate more clearly with Kurama by aligning her spiritual chakra with his. When their energies touched, their thoughts became effortlessly synchronized. And today, As she entered what she had playfully dubbed Kurama's playground, she noticed him twitch. Strange. Hey Kurama, what's up with the twitching? She asked, eyebrows raised. Everything's fine, Naruko. Totally fine, Kurama replied, trying to maintain composure. You sure? You don't look fine, Naruko tilted her head in concern. I said I'm fine, he muttered, then sighed, clearly not in the mood to elaborate. Naruko shrugged. If you say so. Anyway, I wanted to talk face to face. Feels better than just thinking back and forth all the time. Kurama raised a brow, somewhat amused by her logic. We're basically connected all the time, you know. Still. This feels more personal. He sighed again. So what's the matter? Well. She hesitated, why did I fail the first time? I swear I did everything right. Kurama had anticipated this question. It was an opportunity, a chance to help Naruko grow. Even if the truth was simple, that she'd just panicked, he decided a more constructive approach would serve her better. This was his chance to be more than an observer. To truly guide her. Naruko, what have you been focusing on these past few years? He asked thoughtfully. You know what I've been doing? Studying like crazy. I still get headaches remembering all those long hours, she groaned. And that's exactly the issue. Huh? You didn't even mention practice or physical training, just studying, Kurama said, his tone stern as Naruko opened her mouth to respond. He raised a paw to stop her. It was surprisingly commanding. And do you know why? He continued, not waiting for a reply. Don't answer. It was rhetorical. Kurama gave her a pointed look. Because the only thing you've truly invested your time in has been chakra theory. Ever since you came across that silly legend, all you've done is try to copy that so-called mythical shinobi. And let me clarify, she never existed. Kurama let out an exasperated sigh. I've existed as long as chakra itself, and there has never been anyone who could shatter ninjutsu with a mere look, or disrupt energy points just by being touched. That's fantasy, Naruko. I get it, Naruko muttered, raising her hands in mock surrender. What's got you so worked up today? Maybe the fact that you've ignored your training and hoped everything would sort itself out. What if things hadn't worked out? Do I have to explain every step? Kurama shook his head in disbelief. But, Naruko started. No buts, Kurama interrupted firmly. You can't concentrate on one part of your development. Intelligence is crucial, yes, but it can't replace hands-on practice. Books are great, but they aren't a substitute for real-world experience. You have to use what you read to understand the world, not to hide from it. Realizing he was diving deep into philosophy, Kurama decided to shift gears. You remember the symbol for yin and yang, right? How they blur into each other. That's how your training should be, a balance between physical strength and mental growth. A harmony of chakra. Naruko's eyes lit up. So, I guess having my clones do physical workouts while I study isn't the best plan? How did you even, never mind, Kurama groaned. And no, it's not. You can't build real strength through intangible duplicates. That's just not how it works. Okay, that makes sense, Naruko admitted, scratching the back of her head sheepishly. You're losing focus, Kurama added. You're starting to slack off. Do you want to end up as unfocused as Shikamaru? I expected more discipline from you. Hey, I'm nothing like that lazy guy. Naruko fired back, a playful spark in her eyes. Don't compare me to him, fuzzball. Kurama rolled his eyes. Whatever, human. Naruko seemed ready to banter, but instead took a calming breath and refocused. So, I've got another idea. I was thinking of creating a bunch of clones, each one focused on a different skill. But I'm not sure how many I should use. That's partially a good plan, Kurama admitted. But making groups of clones like that won't help much. There's still you, Naruko. You'll just end up with a huge pile of nearly identical memories. It's not productive unless you diversify the tasks entirely. He paused, then calculated quickly. Your brain, with my help, could handle input from about 10, maybe 11, clones before it becomes overwhelming. Any more, and you're just exhausting yourself. Naruko nodded thoughtfully. So, I really need to pick distinct skills and focus each clone on one thing. Exactly. And don't even think about skipping physical training. I get it, Big Fox. I'll do it myself. Good. Now, aside from your training idea, what skills do you want to assign your clones to? I want to study elemental manipulation, but I'm not sure I'm ready. Kurama let out a chuckle. You're more than ready. For now, review your academy curriculum. You skipped a lot, and this is your chance to catch up. Naruko's face brightened with determination. 5 clones on elemental manipulation, 4 revisiting the curriculum, and 1 on your personal project. Meanwhile, you will be focusing on physical conditioning. I want you to be as skilled in hand-to-hand combat as that Uchiha kid. Why do you keep comparing me to him? She grumbled. Because I won't let you be outperformed by an Uchiha, Kurama grinned, though it looked far more intense on his fox-like features. Naruko didn't flinch, she never did around him. Alright, fine. But which element should I start with? Why choose? You'll train in all of them, Kurama declared. Isn't that way too much? Naruko protested. You'll be fine. Just focus and do your best. Naruko visibly gulped but nodded. Okay. I'll try. Just stop that spooky aura. Perfect, Kurama said cheerfully. Now off you go. I need some peace and quiet. TCH. Silly fox, Naruko muttered, disappearing from her mindscape with a playful smirk. Kurama's annoyed grumbles echoed behind her, but she didn't stop smiling. Over the next week, Naruko trained harder than she ever had before. The physical workouts were repetitive and challenging, especially the hand-to-hand routines, which frustrated her at times. Kurama, ever the perfectionist, didn't hesitate to point out her every mistake. Still, she persevered. She had made a promise, to herself, and she intended to see it through. Even if that meant facing challenges that tested her to the core. Flashback. Naruko bolted upright. She was running late for her Shinobi ID photo appointment. That was all she needed to complete her official record, and she'd forgotten all about it. She rushed to the office, dreading another scolding from her grandfather figure, the Hokage himself. She had rarely seen him as stern as he was the day before when she had missed the original time slot. This time, she made it just in time. Barely. Under the Hokage's strict gaze, Naruko froze. All her ideas of making dramatic or flashy poses vanished. She sat upright with an awkward smile and avoided eye contact. Once outside the office, she sighed deeply. Phew. That was intense. As she walked down the steps, she spotted a familiar head of blonde hair. Ino. Naruko called. Oh, it's you, Ino replied casually. You here for the photo too? Naruko nodded. Wait. You got promoted? Ino's voice raised with surprise. What did you expect? Naruko said with a playful smirk. We saw you alone at the swing after class. We thought. Well, never mind. I passed, Naruko explained. Turns out Mizuki-sensei wasn't who we thought he was, and Iruka-sensei ended up recognizing my efforts. Aha, Ino replied with a teasing grin. I bet you begged for a retake. I earned it. Naruko protested. Well, good for you. I've got more important things to do, Ino replied primly. Like keeping tabs on Sasuke? Naruko teased. I do not. Ino blushed furiously. I just think he should rejoin our group. That's all. Right. Tell that to someone who isn't the vice president of his fan club. Quiet, you, Ino blurted, dashing up the stairs. Naruko just laughed. End flashback. The rest of the week passed without major events. Naruko's training consumed her entire focus. By the end of each day, she was both physically and mentally drained. Kurama explained it wasn't just the elemental training that exhausted her, it was also the immense volume of academic information her clones were studying and feeding back to her mind. After 3 days of this, Naruko adjusted her strategy. Her clones began focusing on retaining only the most essential information, freeing her to pursue a long-time interest, Fuinjutsu. Although Kurama had been hesitant whenever she brought it up, Naruko felt drawn to it. It was a complex and mysterious art, and now she finally had time to explore it. When she informed Kurama, he simply gave a resigned nod. It seemed he had expected this moment. Naruko studied for 2 days before the long-awaited day arrived. Team Assignment Day. Naruko calmly walked to the academy. She had considered bringing a book to read, like that silver-haired shinobi she sometimes saw around town, but in the end, she decided to just try to look cool. She wore a brand new outfit, sturdy shinobi sandals, gray cargo pants with multiple pockets, a simple black t-shirt under a reinforced navy jacket, and of course, her forehead protector, proudly displayed across her brow. Her spiky blonde hair parted into 2 small bangs that framed her face, and she genuinely felt confident. For the first time, she looked, and felt, like a true shinobi. As usual, as Naruko walked through the village streets, she noticed a range of expressions directed her way. Some were curious, some hesitant, and a few even kind. While many simply passed by without paying attention, there were always a few who watched the energetic young ninja in training with interest. She paused briefly in front of the ninja academy, her eyes scanning the familiar structure, before stepping through the gates, symbolically entering the world of shinobi. Upon entering her classroom, Naruko was met with surprised glances. It wasn't unexpected. After all, she was often spoken of as one of the most unpredictable students at the academy. She responded to the stares with a confident smile. Her close friends, who were used to her antics, simply waved her over. She joined them, engaging in light-hearted conversation meant to ease the tension of the day. Moments later, Iruka-sensei entered the classroom. Although many teachers struggled to maintain control of their classes, Iruka was pleasantly surprised when the room quickly quieted upon his arrival. Beneath his desk, he had already formed the hand signs for his playful big head technique, just in case, but seeing the unexpectedly quiet class, he dispersed his chakra silently and simply shook his head. As he began his announcements, Iruka took note of who was paying attention and who wasn't. Predictably, most of the class was distracted. Some students, particularly the more expressive fans of Sasuke Uchiha, were fixated on him, while others struggled to hide their boredom. Shikamaru Nara had already drifted into a peaceful nap. Iruka pushed forward regardless. "All right everyone," he said with emphasis, "I will now announce the official team assignments." The class perked up slightly. Team 7 will consist of Uzumaki Naruko, Haruno Sakura. Both girls leaned forward with interest. And Uchiha Sasuke. He noted the spark of joy in Sakura's eyes and the curious expression on Naruko's face as she glanced at Sasuke, who remained quiet and distant. Team 8 will be Hinata Hyuga, Aburame Shino, and Inuzuka Kiba. The three teammates exchanged pleased looks. Kiba let out a celebratory cheer, while Shino and Hinata responded with soft smiles, though in Shino's case, it might have just been a gentle buzz from his jacket. Team 10 will include Yamanaka Ino, Nara Shikamaru, and Akimichi Choji. Shikamaru groaned, Choji gave him a reassuring pat, and Ino seemed quietly frustrated. Iruka paused. He mentally counted again. Wait, teams 1 through 8. And 10. Where's team 9? A glance at the assignment list confirmed its absence. Puzzled, he shrugged it off. Elsewhere in the village, a group of uniquely odd shinobi sneezed in unison. "All right, please wait here for your assigned Jonin instructors," Iruka said as he stepped out of the classroom, glad to have finished his part. Inside, students chatted in their respective teams. Teams 8 and 10, already familiar with each other, chatted excitedly. Others, disappointed by not being paired with any clan members, made the best of the situation by exchanging stories of heroic ninja. Team 7, however, was unusually quiet. Sasuke remained stoic, Sakura was shy, and Naruko appeared unsure about approaching her new teammates. "Why don't you spend time with your new team, Naruko?" Shikamaru mumbled teasingly. "Yes, it is important to build trust," Shino added seriously. "But it's Sasuke. And I didn't even know Sakura Haruno was in our class," Naruko replied in disbelief. "They're teasing you, you know," said a voice in her mind, Kurama, the fox spirit sealed within her. Realization dawned on Naruko, and she laughed as her friends chuckled too. Yeah, I'm going," she said with a playful sigh, walking toward her new teammates. She motioned for Sakura to come with her, and the startled girl stood quickly. Naruko noticed her unique pink hair for the first time, definitely rare, and oddly fascinating. "So, I'm Naruko. You're Sakura, right?" she asked, cringing inwardly at how awkward she sounded. "Yes. Are you friends with Sasuke?" Sakura asked, her cheeks slightly pink. "I guess so. We haven't really talked much lately, though," Naruko replied. They reached Sasuke, and Naruko, trying to lighten the mood, blurted out, "Hey, mama's boy." The room fell silent. Every student turned to stare at her. Even Sakura and Hinata were giving her unimpressed looks. She winced. "Quiet, Uzumaki," Sasuke said calmly, returning to his silence. Any further conversation attempts were halted. As other teams were called away, Team 7 remained alone. Eventually, Naruko sighed and let her thoughts drift. "Don't start brooding," Kurama said firmly in her mind. "Oh, come on. I'm just thinking," Naruko replied. "Thinking? That's what you call it?" Naruko smirked. "What's wrong, fuzzball? Don't like me calling you that?" Kurama growled playfully. Stop calling me that. Fuzzball tilde, she teased again. Suddenly, Kurama tried to push against his seal, and got a mild shock in return. Naruko winced at first, but quickly burst into laughter. Kurama grumbled. You okay? Sakura asked hesitantly. Ah. Yeah, just remembered a joke, Naruko said, scratching her head. Really? Tell us. I forgot it, Naruko lied quickly. Sakura gave her a skeptical glance but didn't press further. The room fell back into silence. After over an hour, the classroom door finally opened. A tall, silver-haired man entered, his face partially concealed by a mask and his forehead protector tilted over one eye. My first impression of you, he said casually, you're not very exciting. Meet me on the roof. And with that, he disappeared. He didn't even tell us his name, Naruko said in disbelief. Well, I'll see you two up there. With a flicker of chakra, she disappeared using a genjutsu to mask her exit, racing to the roof. When she arrived, the masked man, Kakashi Hatake, was already seated, reading a small orange book. Sensei. She called cheerfully. Yes? Kakashi replied without looking up. Why didn't you at least tell us your name before vanishing? Naruko asked, a little annoyed. In time, Kakashi said cryptically. Moments later, Sasuke and Sakura joined them. Kakashi gestured for them to sit in a semicircle. Let's start with introductions. Your name, likes, dislikes, hobbies, and goals. You go first, sensei, Sakura suggested softly. I'm Kakashi Hatake. My likes and dislikes? I'd rather not say. Dreams? Can't really talk about those either. Hobbies? I have many. The three young ninja sweat dropped. Alright, your turn, Kakashi said, pointing at Sakura. I'm Sakura Haruno. I like reading and, well, a few other things. I dislike people who hurt others. My dream is to become a strong kunoichi like Lady Tsunade. I don't really have a specific hobby, though. Good. Your turn, Blondie, he said, glancing at Naruko. I'm Uzumaki Naruko, she said brightly, pointing to herself. I like training and reading. I also really enjoy ramen and spending time with my friends. What I dislike? Let's just say I'm not sharing that. My dream is to become the greatest shinobi ever. My hobbies include practicing chakra control and reading adventure novels. Alright. You, Kakashi said, turning to Sasuke. I'm Sasuke Uchiha. I like some things and dislike more. My ambition is to restore my clan and become stronger than anyone else. His tone was calm, his expression unreadable. Well then, Kakashi said after a pause, tomorrow is your real test. A survival training exercise. But we already did that at the academy. Naruko protested. This is different. This is the final test to see who truly becomes a Genin. Only 1/3 of students pass. The rest go back to the academy. What? Then what was that last test for? Naruko exclaimed. That was to filter out those without the basic potential. This is the real deal. Be at training ground 7 at 6 in the morning. Don't eat beforehand, you'll regret it. And with that, Kakashi vanished once more. Naruko stared at the empty spot in disbelief, then slowly turned to wave goodbye to her teammates before heading home. That afternoon, she trained diligently. She successfully sliced a leaf using wind chakra and even sparked it briefly with fire. Lightning remained unpredictable, earth uncooperative, and water a challenge. Her progress in sealing techniques was slow, but steady. Exhausted, she went to sleep early, relying on Kurama to wake her at 5 a.m. The next morning, at exactly 6, Naruko arrived at the training field and sat beneath a tree. She sensed Sasuke perched quietly above. A minute later, Sakura ran in, breathless. I'm sorry I'm late. She called out, still catching her breath. 2 sets of eyes quietly observed her arrival. Even a pair of deep charcoal-colored eyes glanced in her direction. She walked shyly the rest of the way and took a seat beside Naruko. After exchanging greetings, the two began chatting casually until Sasuke finally leapt down from his perch. Sakura jumped in surprise, and Naruko flinched as well. She had completely forgotten Sasuke was even there. Good morning, Sasuke said with a flat tone. Gee, good morning, Uchiha-san, Sakura greeted nervously, her cheeks tinged with pink. Naruko took a deep breath, reminding herself to stay polite. Good morning, she managed to say with a tight-lipped smile. Sasuke gave a slight smirk. Looks like we'll be waiting a while again, Sasuke commented dryly after a moment of silence. Unfortunately, Naruko sighed. They waited for quite a long time, growing more and more restless. Finally, after 3 full hours, their Jonin instructor arrived at last. "Good morning." Kakashi greeted them with a cheerful voice. "Why were you so late?" Naruko asked, trying to keep her tone calm. I'm afraid I got lost on the road of life," Kakashi replied with a playful smirk, clearly amused by their frustrated expressions. "Anyway, are you all ready?" After receiving 3 nods, he continued, "This is your test." He pulled 2 small bells from his pouch and jingled them. "Whoever manages to take one of these bells will pass." "But there are only 2, Sakura blurted out. The others stared at her with exasperated expressions. "What? It's true," she insisted. "Does that mean one of us will fail?" "Correct. So you'll need to be fast. You have until lunchtime. Whoever doesn't get a bell will be tied to a post and watch while the others enjoy a delicious meal I've brought." He smiled mischievously. "Oh, and one more thing. Come at me with full intent. If you hold back, you won't stand a chance." "But what if we hurt you?" Sakura asked in concern. The sweat drop on everyone's forehead grew more noticeable. "Don't worry, you won't. I'm a Jonin, remember?" Kakashi said, chuckling lightly. "All right, begin." With that, Team 7 quickly dispersed. Kakashi could already sense Sakura's presence. She was hidden underneath the same branch Sasuke was on, doing her best for an academy student. Sasuke was nearby as well, trying to suppress his chakra, although without much success. But where was Naruko? His visible eye widened. He couldn't detect her chakra at all. He scanned the area until a glimpse of blonde hair caught his eye, tucked poorly into some nearby bushes. He sighed, but was taken aback when Naruko stood up and began walking toward him with confident strides. As she walked, the surroundings seemed to respond to her aura. Wind blew unpredictably, faint embers swirled in the air, and moisture in the atmosphere danced lightly, creating a misty shimmer. The illusion was striking, almost mystical. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. He calmly flexed his chakra, dispelling the genjutsu with minimal effort. Reality snapped back, revealing Naruko still walking confidently toward him, her expression bright and proud. "Wasn't that cool?" She grinned. "You really thought that would work?" Kakashi asked, amused. "And I didn't realize you had an interest in genjutsu." "Well, the academy hardly teaches us about illusions. Apart from that basic dispel this E-rank test, there's nothing," she replied with a huff. "True enough," Kakashi chuckled. "So you're telling me you're a genjutsu prodigy?" He teased while pulling a book from his pouch and flipping it open. "Are you seriously going to read during the test?" Naruko asked. She was answered with a mischievous chuckle. She sighed. "Fine, I won't waste this chance." She charged forward. Her speed was impressive. 1 second she was meters away, and the next she was nearly under Kakashi's chin, her fist inches from his face. Kakashi's eyes widened, as did Sakura's and Sasuke's. Still, he quickly redirected the punch to the side and stepped in close, flipping Naruko to the ground and holding a kunai near her. "How?" she began, only for her image to vanish. "A shadow clone." Kakashi's gaze shifted in alarm as his book, the new volume he'd just bought, sailed through the air, eventually landing in the nearby lake with a splash. His mouth opened in disbelief. Naruko, now visible at her original position, stood grinning, hands in her pockets. Her plan had been clever. Before the test began, she had concealed herself using genjutsu while sending a clone to draw Kakashi's attention. The clone was fast, faster than anyone expected, thanks to her recent training. The clone's attack was a distraction meant to knock Kakashi's book into the air, and as it turned out, it worked perfectly. Kakashi now radiated a faint wave of pressure, nothing scary, just serious. That book was rare. "Maybe that was a bit much," Naruko mumbled. "You think?" came the sarcastic voice from within her, her inner spirit clearly unimpressed. She tried to cast another genjutsu, but something disrupted her technique each time. She didn't have time to puzzle it out. Kakashi appeared before her in a blink. "First lesson, taijutsu," he announced. Despite Naruko's high speed, her reflexes weren't fully adapted yet. She'd only recently discovered her enhanced movement, and real-time combat was still overwhelming. Kakashi's punch landed solidly, sending her skidding into the forest. She bumped into a tree and lost her breath for a second but quickly regained her focus and vanished into the foliage again. Kakashi let her go, puzzled. She should have dodged that. Maybe I went too far, he thought. Meanwhile, Sasuke watched silently, then narrowed his eyes. It was time to plan. He set a trap with a wire-triggered mechanism loaded with ninja tools, carefully calculating each step. Kakashi remained in the clearing, eyes eventually locking with Sasuke's. The moment passed like lightning, and Sasuke darted off, cutting the wire with a kunai, setting his trap in motion. A flurry of tools launched, but Kakashi avoided them effortlessly with a substitution technique. Intrigued, Kakashi pursued Sasuke to a small clearing. There, Sasuke spun around and launched into an intense taijutsu battle. Each move was blocked. His strikes were powerful, but they didn't land. Kakashi's skills were simply too advanced. Then, Sakura jumped down from a tree above, kunai in hand, and Naruko dashed in from the forest, both attacking at once. Kakashi redirected Sakura's kunai, causing Naruko to defend instinctively, grabbing Sakura's wrist. Kakashi gave a light push, and the two toppled before scrambling back into fighting position. Sasuke quickly reassessed. Ninjutsu was too risky, it might harm his teammates, but a combined approach could work. Sakura. Naruko. Let's do this together, he said decisively. Kakashi's eye widened in surprise. Maybe they really are ready, he thought. Then, he vanished. Naruko instantly dispelled the genjutsu. Guys, it's an illusion, she warned, but too late. Kakashi swiftly and gently knocked Sakura aside, then approached Sasuke, who also broke free of the illusion. The next moment, both Sasuke and Sakura were gently tapped at the back of their necks and collapsed softly. Lesson 2, Ninjutsu. And Lesson 3, Genjutsu, Kakashi said cheerfully. He nodded to his shadow clone, and together they brought the students to the posts beside their meal. But then, he did something he hadn't done before, he went to buy extra food. He had already decided, these students would pass. But he still had to make them sweat a little. Naruko woke up slowly, her eyes adjusting to the sunlight. She looked around and noticed the post and the meal beside it. Wait, there was more food than before. A hopeful smile spread across her face. Not yet, Kakashi said with a smile in his eye. You can read minds now? Naruko asked with suspicion. Maybe, Kakashi answered playfully. Let's wait for the others to wake up before I decide your fate. Soon, Sasuke and Sakura stirred, blinking away the haze. No, you haven't passed yet, Kakashi said again, keeping his tone serious. So why did you decide to work together? He asked. Because that was the real point of the test, Naruko replied earnestly. I realized I couldn't win on my own. None of us could. You said only 2 would pass, but we couldn't even touch you alone. That meant we had to cooperate. She continued, I found Sakura and brought her to the fight with Sasuke. Even then, we lost. So, we failed? The 3 of them looked down, discouraged. Kakashi let out a long sigh. You passed. There was silence. Then Naruko cheered, Sasuke smirked, and Sakura gasped in disbelief. What you did was exactly what I was looking for, Kakashi said, his voice softer now. Remember, those who break the rules are frowned upon. But those who abandon their teammates are even worse. He smiled warmly. As a reward, I present to you, the Kakashi all-you-can-eat buffet. The trio stared at the modest meal. You call this a buffet? Naruko said flatly. Oh? You're offering to give your portion to your friends? That's so generous. Kakashi replied with exaggerated delight. No, I'll eat, Naruko said quickly, rushing over to the food with her teammates close behind. That day, Team 7 laughed, trained, shared a meal, and learned their first valuable lesson as comrades. It was a beautiful beginning for the journey ahead. Kakashi smiled quietly behind his orange book. He wasn't truly reading, but it was far too entertaining to observe the expressions on his students' faces. Team 7 had started their D-rank missions just a day after their formation, and the early excitement of becoming shinobi had worn off quickly. Who would have thought that their first tasks would involve walking dogs, caring for infants, or tending to overgrown gardens? Clearly, none of the members of Team 7 were expecting this, judging by their less than enthusiastic faces. The joys of being a mentor. Watching his students carry out tasks while he offered profound wisdom was a delight in itself. He especially enjoyed making up playful justifications when they came to him, pleading for an explanation. Flashback. Why are we walking dogs? What's the point of this? Sasuke asked in frustration. Kakashi sighed, I thought the Uchiha prodigy would understand the deeper purpose. This is a test of leadership. Yes, leading a team through tasks like this shows your ability to manage responsibility. Don't you see it now? No, Sasuke answered flatly. Did you say something? Kakashi replied with faux ignorance. A few days later. So, we're babysitting because this is similar to an escort mission, right? Naruko asked, trying to rationalize it. Exactly. Brilliant insight, Kakashi said, pretending to be struck with inspiration. The following day. These are just chores, Sakura said with a defeated sigh. Is the village using us? Of course not. Kakashi replied quickly. You're being trained and paid. What could be better? All three genin released a synchronized sigh. Being a teacher was truly rewarding. If he had known earlier how amusing this job could be, he might have passed more teams. Then again, most lacked even basic teamwork. Still, his students were bright, unique, and full of potential, far more interesting than guys' over-enthusiastic team. After another long D-rank assignment, which involved weeding the garden of an enthusiastic elderly lady, Team 7 was finally heading to the Hokage's office for mission debriefing. It was already past 5 in the evening. They'd been working since 9 in the morning, including a bit of extra team training. Hopefully, they would begin training independently as well. Recently, Kakashi had started letting them report directly to the Hokage. Not because he was lazy, of course, but to help them gain valuable experience. And that's when I, with the strength of 1,000 suns, yanked the stubborn weed from the earth, despite its valiant resistance, Naruko declared dramatically, much to the amusement of those in the room, except for her teammates, who shared her pain in silence. So, everything went as expected? The Hokage asked with a twinkle in his eye. Kakashi nodded without looking up from his book. Well then, you're dismissed. Naruko, you'd make a great storyteller someday, he said with a warm chuckle. Thank you, old man. Naruko beamed, walking out with her teammates. As the team dispersed, Naruko wandered to her favorite clearing, hidden from view, and began her personal training session. In the few weeks since their team's formation, she had made significant progress, especially in the art of Fuinjutsu. Something about it just clicked with her, as if it was meant to be. While the risks in sealing arts required careful, step-by-step learning, Naruko had developed a system of using multiple shadow clones to speed up her reading and comprehension. By now, she could confidently say she had the knowledge of an average chunin in the subject. Her elemental training was progressing slower. Wind came naturally to her, and she could now shape leaves using sharp currents of air. Fire was difficult to control, lightning remained elusive, and earth and water were both inconsistent. Still, she had improved every technique she already knew. Her shadow clone enhancements were also promising, even if one of them was too mentally taxing for regular use. Physically, she had become stronger, more agile, and more focused. She felt herself growing, slowly but surely, into the kind of shinobi she aspired to be. Still, training was repetitive. While she enjoyed getting stronger, the routine was starting to wear her down. But Kurama always reminded her with calm wisdom, push through it. So she did. Meanwhile, within the sealed space, Kurama lay within his sealed domain, eyes half-lidded in deep thought. Being the nine-tailed fox came with its own frustrations, especially when bound in a tight space with a determined child who constantly wanted to talk. But if he was being honest, he was learning. Naruko's study habits were meticulous, especially in sealing techniques. He absorbed everything she did, and it fascinated him. This time of confinement, though frustrating, was turning into a period of growth. He would one day emerge stronger and wiser. While he didn't care for humans as a whole, he was beginning to see rare individuals, like Naruko, who displayed real potential. Yes, she was a genius, even if she didn't know it yet. Back in reality. Naruko finished her routine, exhausted but energized by progress. Despite her improvements, she couldn't help but feel disheartened by the endless chores. She wanted meaningful missions, something real, something challenging. Unbeknownst to her, Kakashi had already begun considering the idea of requesting a C-rank mission from the Hokage. Their next D-rank mission involved catching a notorious cat named Tora. The feline was astonishingly elusive and had a tendency to scratch everyone who came near. Eventually, Naruko managed to secure the cat in her arms, despite the scratches across her face. She held it firmly, determined not to let it slip away again. As they made their way back to the Hokage Tower, Kakashi walked calmly, amused by the urgency of his students. "Come on, what's the rush? It's just a cat," he teased. "You have no idea," Naruko muttered, scowling slightly. Once they reached the office, the Hokage greeted them warmly, though their mission was quickly interrupted by an emotional reunion between Tora and her wealthy owner. "Mission complete," Hiruzen said with a knowing smile. "Are you ready for another? Weeding, babysitting, or retrieving cats?" Kakashi repeated the options with a grin. Naruko sighed dramatically. "This is exactly why I became a ninja." "Oh? Do you believe you're ready for more challenging tasks?" the Hokage asked. "Yes, old man. I know I am," she declared confidently. With a chuckle, the Hokage nodded. "Very well. Team 7, you are assigned to a C-rank mission." He turned to an assistant. "Bring in the bridge builder." A man entered, appearing rather ordinary, except for the bottle of drink in his hand. He took a sip, eyeing the team skeptically. "These are the ninja I hired?" he asked, unimpressed. Naruko narrowed her eyes but kept her tone polite. "We may be young, but we are capable, sir." "Don't mind him," Kakashi said with a sweat drop. "He's not serious." Kazuna seemed a bit alarmed, but eventually shrugged it off. "Meet me at the village gates in an hour, little ninjas," he added with a mocking smirk before leaving. Naruko's expression darkened slightly. "He really tests my patience," she muttered, walking out without a word. Dash. As the rest of the ninja chuckled, the Hokage turned to Kakashi. "So, how's Team 7? "They're progressing well," Kakashi said thoughtfully. "Naruko and Sasuke are already growing into strong shinobi, and Sakura is giving it her all." "And what about Naruko's potential?" the Hokage asked seriously. Kakashi looked up, his usual relaxed demeanor fading. "She's exceptional." Kakashi leaned back thoughtfully, his eye distant as he evaluated his student. Naruko. She's quite the unique one," he mused. "She's got strength, enough, in fact, that I believe she could easily be promoted to Chunin. Lately, I suspect she's been holding back during training. Almost like she doesn't find it challenging enough anymore." He chuckled lightly, a drop of sweat sliding down his temple. "Physically, she doesn't follow any formal taijutsu style, and yet she manages to utilize advanced techniques, like channeling chakra through her limbs, with surprising precision. It lets her move at a speed comparable to elite ninja. So maybe she doesn't even need a formal style." Kakashi paused, then added more seriously, "Her true talent, though, lies in genjutsu. Aside from Kurenai, I don't believe anyone in the village can rival her in that area. She's discovered a way to activate illusions without using traditional hand seals. And so far, no one has figured out how. I believe she has such an intricate understanding of chakra that she's able to shape it exactly how she wants, directly through will." The Hokage, Hiruzen, made a quiet sound of agreement. "And in terms of ninjutsu, her only limitation is her relatively limited jutsu knowledge." Kakashi paused again. "There's something else. I believe she sometimes communicates with the nine-tailed fox." "Oh, you noticed," the Hokage said with calm acceptance. "Yes, she's been in contact with the Bijou for years now. But interestingly, it doesn't seem to negatively affect her at all. She doesn't hold any grudges or dark ambitions, so I've decided not to interfere." "But," Kakashi began, only to be cut off. "I even had a member of the Yamanaka clan quietly examine her subconscious while she was asleep. The only thing we discovered was that she shares a surprisingly friendly rapport with Kurama. Yes, the nine-tailed fox actually has a name." Kakashi looked troubled. "Still, what you did, especially to Naruko." "I know," Hiruzen responded quietly, lowering his hat. "But I had to prioritize the village. I needed to be certain that, well, that Kurama wasn't influencing her in a way that would harm others." Kakashi nodded solemnly. "Understood, Hokage-sama." Dismissed. Dash. Internal conversations. Back in her room, Naruko lay on her bed, slightly irritated by the bridge builder's recent comments. "I just don't like being looked down on," she said to Kurama within her mind. "There's nothing wrong with being underestimated," the fox replied. "In fact, sometimes it works to your advantage. Would you rather people lower their guard and give you an easier path, or face you at full strength from the start?" Naruko sighed. "I know the logical answer. But I want to win because I'm the best, not because I was ignored or misjudged. That said, I'm not strong enough to beat everyone yet. So, maybe a little strategy won't hurt." Kurama chuckled. That's the spirit. But don't misunderstand what strength truly means. It's not just raw power. Intelligence, timing, and adaptability, they all make up a complete warrior. If you want to become truly powerful, you must master them all. I get that. But I'm already smart. I don't want to rely on tricks all the time, Naruko muttered. You still have a lot to learn, Kurama said, not unkindly. Even if you were the strongest in the world, that wouldn't give you the luxury of ignoring good tactics. Power without wisdom is wasted. Remember that. Naruko blinked, taken aback by the seriousness in Kurama's tone. But she managed to smile. Thanks, Kurama. I'll go get ready. TCH. That kid, the fox muttered, but a small, warm grin appeared on his face. Dash. Team 7's journey. Naruko met with her teammates right on time. As usual, their sensei Kakashi arrived fashionably late, though this time, only by 10 minutes. Let's go, Kakashi said cheerfully, already immersed in his signature book. He instructed the group to form a diamond formation, he at the front, Sakura to the left, Naruko on the right, and Sasuke bringing up the rear with Tazuna in the center. As they walked, the group noticed Kakashi's punctuality with subtle surprise, but said nothing. Later, they paused for a quick roadside lunch before continuing. That's when Kakashi spotted something off. A puddle? That's strange, it hasn't rained recently, he noted calmly. Kakashi subtly surveyed his team. Sakura was distracted by the scenery, and Naruko was repeatedly glancing from the puddle to him with a face that was quickly growing concerned. Sasuke's expression was hidden by Tazuna. Kakashi made his decision. He allowed the two ambushers, rogue ninja from the hidden mist, to execute their move. As their chains wrapped around his apparent form, he escaped with a seamless substitution technique fused with genjutsu, vanishing into the surrounding forest. Naruko noticed Kakashi's chakra signature and quickly focused on the real threat. Sasuke. The one on the right is yours, she shouted. With synchronized timing, both Shin'an rushed their targets. Sasuke launched shuriken that disrupted the enemy's chain weapon, inadvertently pushing one opponent toward Naruko, who had to dodge and adapt her position. One enemy closed in on Naruko with a swift strike, but she quickly replaced herself with a log through another substitution technique. Reappearing behind her foe, Naruko delivered a sharp kick to his side, followed by an agile counter to deflect his next strike. She spun mid-air, adding wind chakra to her movement, disrupting the opponent's balance just enough to land two quick blows that knocked him down. As he tried to recover, she cast a genjutsu that distorted his senses, then followed with a chakra-enhanced punch aimed at his forehead. The combination worked, her improvised technique knocked the enemy unconscious. Meanwhile, Sasuke was locked in a clash with the second attacker. Naruko threw a kunai between them to create space. The two combatants leapt back. Before they could re-engage, Kakashi appeared and swiftly incapacitated the remaining foe. Well now, Kakashi said politely, turning to the bridge builder. I trust you'll be honest with us moving forward, Tazuna-san? Tazuna hesitated before finally admitting the truth. A powerful tycoon named Gato had taken control of the region's commerce and left the land of waves in despair. The bridge he was constructing was their last hope to restore freedom and trade. Team 7 listened quietly. I guess now I can't just walk away, Sakura murmured. Naruko and Sasuke, however, were too busy arguing. You almost got me seriously hurt, Naruko exclaimed, forehead to forehead with Sasuke. I was trying to handle both enemies at once. What's wrong with that? Sasuke snapped back. You were supposed to take the right one, not both. Naruko retorted. You're not the team leader, he responded, scowling. Before the argument could escalate, Kakashi gently separated them. Don't worry about those two, he said to Tazuna with a smile. They're just thrilled to continue this mission. And with that, Team 7 continued on, determined and ready for the challenges ahead. That wraps up this segment. More content is on the way, so stay tuned, you won't want to miss it. If you enjoyed this, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. Appreciate your time. Until next time. 6 Path Weeb.